Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some items from Picket Fence Studios. This is the Merry Christmas Friends and Dies, and then the other one is the Joyeux Noël. We're going to come back to that pronunciation. But first, we're going to talk about winter trees. And so, what is the secret, the easiest way to get winter trees? We're heading into winter. I'm sad about it too. We can all mourn together. But they're a great, easy background, even for beginners. And so the easiest way that you can create winter trees is with your chisel tip alcohol markers. They are like a little secret weapon. And so we're going to do it two ways, so that you can see the difference when you use 2 colors versus 3 colors and how you shade them. But ultimately, the technique is the same. The technique is very simple. So this is me very loosely giving myself some snow that I'm going to use at the bottom of the cards. I just trim those out by hand. If you have a die for slopes, use those. Those would be great too. But if you don't, you can just cut them yourself. So make sure you erase the pencil line though. And then I trace them onto some cardstock so that I could know where my trees need to begin and end. And then all we're going to do is draw lines. That's it, guys. That's all we're going to do. And dependent upon how thick or thin you want your trees, you can decide, or like, especially like the little branches, I wanted thinner branches, just turn the marker so you're not using the full broad tip, you're using just the edge of it, and you can create little thin branches. Now, as far as placement goes for how to put them into your background, this one, like, I made it to be bigger. I did 2 lines next to each other. That one's going to look like it's more in the forefront. Also, if you start them higher up on the card, they're going to look like they're further back in the distance. Here, I got the branch got like a little weird with the thickness. So I just made the whole thing a little bit thicker so that it worked together. But now you can see, because we have some that started kind of up higher on the card and some that started lower, it looks like a little pathway into the trees, which is exactly how we are going to use it. For the shading on this one, we're only using 2 colors to create these. I chose some blues. They're a little less saturated colors, but I am just going in with a darker blue. Pick the left or the right, it doesn't matter which side, and then add a little bit of shading. If you want a branch to appear like it is in front, then you'll add the shading to the entire portion of the branch. If you want the branch to appear like it is in the back, then you will only add the shading underneath that branch that's in the back. So you'll have to skip a section for anything that covers it in the front. And then that's really it. That's really all you have to do to create your trees. Will we do some other things to blend it into the scene? Absolutely. But really, that's the whole technique. So now we're going to do it so we create a little bit more dimension, kind of like a forest full of trees instead of a pathway. And in order to do that, we're going to use 3 colors. So for these, I chose blue greens. And this is going to be kind of a more elegant card because I also wanted you to see that you can use this for really cute stamps and scenes, and you can use it for a more elegant look as well. It's super versatile and very easy. So for your trees that are furthest in the distance, you want to use your lightest color. I am using my Olo markers, by the way. I didn't say that. And the lightest color for this one is a BG 7.2. And then the mid-tone is a 7.3, and then the darkest color is I think a 7.6. I will double check that. But basically, you start with the lightest color. Those are the trees that are going to be the furthest in the distance. And then you will go over those trees, not exactly over them. You're just going to draw new trees over them in your mid-tone. And then your darkest color will be the ones that are more in the forefront. So again, I've made that tree a little bit thicker, and you can see how we're really starting to get some depth and dimension. And then there's one because this is like foolproof. Like honestly, if you mess up, you just turn it into a new tree. You're going to see me do it here in a second. So I was going through, adding my little branches totally haphazardly, and I got this one right here that was just too thick. Well, it didn't make sense for that thick of a branch to be coming off that thin of a branch, so I just turned it into another tree, and it's fine. Nobody's gonna know the difference. It's a little wonky tree, but trees in nature are wonky. So in order to add shading to these, I'm not going to bring in any new colors. I'm just going to overlap the current color with another layer. So I'm just going to go in and add that again. Just pick the left or right hand side, whatever makes your heart happy. And then add your shadows to the bottom portion of your branches. And if you want it to be in the front, you'll add it to the whole branch. If you want it to be behind, you'll have to skip the area of anything that's in the forefront. And I'm just going to do this for each one. It would have been easier, truly. It would have been easier if I did the shadows as I went. So that's something to take into consideration if you really want to add the shadows. Just do them as you go. As you do each layer, add the shadows, because it does make it more challenging to see the ones in the background. But ultimately, I was able to make it work. And now we have this forest full of trees and a little pathway of trees. So from here, I decided I wanted to try this, a lighter blue in the background. Ultimately, the blue was pretty much too light, but I found something very interesting when I went to add my inking over top. The Olo markers kind of resisted the ink, so you can see them just a little bit in real life, which is interesting. So here I've basically chose the shaded lilac for the snow, and then I'm using speckled egg for both of them, because it's kind of like that in between. Sometimes it can be green, sometimes it can be blue. So I'm using speckled egg as my base of my lightest color to add some shading to my sky. And I'm going to use that color for both the navy trees and the blue-green trees. And then I'm going to switch it up to the darker color. For the darkest color on the blue, I used Stormy Sky. For the darkest color on the green, I used Iced Spruce. And again, these are substantially less saturated colors. So it's just going to kind of blend in those trees really nicely to the sky. And I left the centers much brighter on the blue one. On the green one, I didn't leave the center quite as bright because it's like my trees are my focal point. I don't need to draw attention to the center. Whereas with the blue ones, the trees are my scene and the focal point is actually going to be these adorable little Christmas characters. For the snow, I like a blue-violet snow myself. Not everybody does. You can use blue, you could use gray, you could use a lighter purple, you could use like a purple pink. That would be pretty too for snow. But whichever color you're shading your snow with, you want to make sure you leave the top edge white, unless you are doing a night scene. And then you might want to add you would still leave a white edge, but it would be substantially more shading. In order to just knock back the brightness on the shaded lilac, I am going over it with speckled egg, and then we're going to move on to the stamping. So, like I said, I wanted to show you that this is a technique you can use whether you love really cute things or you love things that are maybe a bit more elegant. And these are my little cuties for my little cute scene. There's, how many are there? There's like 6 or something. Is there 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there's 6 little, characters, little friends. They all appear to be girls though. I will say that. 6 little girls in the, Merry Christmas Friends. I chose the 3 that had the little animal hats on, because I thought that they were adorable, quite honestly. So I have a little unicorn, a little fox, and a little bunny. This very much I guess, I don't know if they're friends. To me, I was thinking of them being like sisters. I don't know if you have siblings, but I do. I'm one of 3 girls. And so did your parents ever dress you similarly? Like, I distinctly remember some of the outfits that my mom would put us in that were either exactly the same or the same but in different colors. And we were not twins, PPS. That's not, we were just sisters. I remember this one, we were going to a wedding. I think it was for a wedding. might have been a birthday party. But anyway, it was like a little polka. This is back in the 80s, by the way, like the late 80s. It was a top that was, mine was pink. Kim's was blue. Mine was pink. Kim's was pink. Mine was blue. One of the other. I can't remember. But anyway, and it had like a little top that had like shorts, but then it had like the tiered skirt that went over the shorts, and it was all polka dotted and matching. And then we had these little sunglass hair clips that were like the same color polka dot. And these were our outfits, so we were dressed identically, except for, again, the color was different. And there was quite a few of those when we were young enough that my mom was in charge of dressing us. So that's what I was thinking for these little girls is, maybe they're sisters and they all have different animal, hats or whatever that they had picked, or maybe their mom picked them. But either or, I thought that they were really cute and would look really nice. I did choose colors, again, that are on the grayer side, so they're kind of desaturated to match the vibe that we have with the trees. Because I am still figuring out my Olos, I'm definitely more comfortable with my Copics as far as color combinations go. But because I'm still figuring out my Olos, I am still messing around with combinations. And because I don't color a lot of people, I definitely had to play around with the skin tones. And this poor little unicorn, as of right now, she looks sickly. She looks a little peaked. She needs some warmth brought back into her skin tone, which we will tackle in a little bit. I just chose browns that were too desaturated, and she does not look healthy. She doesn't look healthy. She needs a little warmth brought back into her skin tone. So, yeah, let's go back and talk about the pronunciation. If you don't know about Picket Fence Studios, they are actually based in Louisiana, and it's there you saw me like go right over it with like a little bit of a peachier color to add some more warmth. I think I actually go over it with another color as well. But so they're like Cajun country, Louisiana, and French is a very predominant language down there. And so when I got this stamp set, which I think is beautiful, it's got a lot of really nice sentiments in it and the coordinating dies, which I always appreciate for holiday cards because it means you can do a pretty background, smack a large sentiment on it, and be done. But I was like, oof, how do I pronounce that? I don't know. I do not know how to pronounce that. And so I went and looked it up, and I'm sure that if you speak French, I've probably butchered it, even though I've listened to YouTube pronounce it to me multiple times. Joyeux Noel. Yeah, I'm probably not saying it confidently enough. It always sounds different. People deliver things confidently. But I took French. Okay? This is how it was when I was growing up. In middle school, when you entered into middle school, you had to take both Spanish and French. And you took it for 2 years. And then once you got into high school, you could then make the choice between Spanish and French. Now this is back in the 90s, y'all. So I'm sure they have probably more options. And I went to public school. I didn't go to private. So like Latin wasn't an option. But anywho, so then when you got there, you could choose whether or not you wanted to continue with Spanish or you wanted to continue with French. And I chose to continue with French because I could not speak Spanish. I can't roll my R's. It doesn't sound right when I speak Spanish. Turns out it doesn't sound right when I speak French either. I just think that I cannot commit to it. Like I don't have the ability to speak it confidently, and so it never sounds correct. So yeah, this one was a rough one for me, but I do still love the stamp set, even if I can't pronounce it. Did you guys have to learn, other languages? Like, was that something that was part of your curriculum? My husband, this is a funny story. So my husband, in his college degree, he actually has a minor in Spanish. And, so when they were hiring him, obviously that's very attractive that he's bilingual, that he's got a minor in another language, and Spanish is a very common language. So, they were actually at work and they were on a call, and his boss was like, hey, this guy doesn't speak any English. He only speaks Spanish. Can you come over here and talk to him? And my husband's like, I don't know what you want me to do about it. And he was like, no, I was in on your interview and I remember that you have a minor in Spanish. And my husband was like, correct, but nobody asked me if I could speak it. Nobody confirmed that I could speak Spanish. So I think it's just because he's out of practice. Like, he knows enough to be able to communicate, but not to carry on like a full-fledged conversation comfortably. And I don't know any other languages. I hope that will be different for our children. I hope that they will be better about learning another language, because I think it is wildly important. But yeah, I just had to giggle to myself about that. So let's talk about the coloring. So I told you I was choosing more colors that were a little less saturated because that's what I have going on in the background. I repeated those same blue greens in her dress because I think they play really nicely with the navy background. I also chose some pinks and purples. I wanted them to, be adorable, cute little Christmas girls, but not necessarily specifically Christmas. I wanted them to be more winter because I feel like that makes them more versatile. And I love anything that is more versatile. So I'm just kind of spanning the colors across all of my girls so that they look cohesive, so that my card will look cohesive. The exception to that is this fox. I can't change the color of the fox. The fox is a reddish brown, and while he may not necessarily go with anything else the other girls are holding, I think that it's okay. You tell me what you think. I think it's okay because we use blue as the background and orange is blue's natural complement. So I think once she's in the scene, it does still look nice. So from here, basically, are outside of this one little girl's hair, which I'm going in, and I am repeating the colors I used for the fox. But then now that they're done, I'm going to go in with my grays. I'm going to put in my little pathway. I just did this with some little streaks of color. So I started with my darkest color, went back over it with my mid-tone, and then again with my lightest. And this looks a little crazy right now because I don't have my snow in, but once I have my snow in, it'll make more sense. If you didn't want to put snow in the front, you would then have to bring out that shading more forward if you didn't want to use another piece. The one on the right is fine. You wouldn't have to add you wouldn't have to add the snow in the front. You could leave it by itself, just add the shading directly to the cardstock. So now we're just going to move on to building these little guys. And so I'm going to glue my snow down flat. I like the way that the snow looks, but again, if you don't want to have to do the extra piece, you would not have to. And I am using my glue press to do that. I've really come to quite enjoy the glue press because it does make it easier and I'm not having to constantly squeeze glue bottles. If you wanted more dimension in your cards, of course, you could pop these up with foam tape. Same thing with our little characters. You could pop them up with foam tape. I chose not to. I glued everything down flat, with the exception of I'm going to have to say it again, and I'm going to butcher it, the Joyeux Noel. I found this one was much easier to stamp after I die cut it because this N, with like the swoosh on the N, which I think is beautiful, is a little bit movable. So I found it if I die cut it and then I positioned my stamp where I wanted it, it was easier to get everything lined up. Both of these I am going to, I thought I was going to use the Merry Christmas on the other one, but then it covered up so much of my trees I didn't like it. So I ended up using one of the smaller sentiments. But both of these papers are from Spellbinders Wildflower Pack. This is the green, and then the other one I used the blue. These are not perfect matches for what I have going on. So after I do my heat embossing, this is just white detail embossing powder, and you saw me stamp them in there, white pigment ink. Once I heat set these, I am going to do some inking over top of them to make them match a little bit better, but that embossing will resist the inking. So no worries there. You just have to make sure you're using an ink that is water-based. In my case, I am using Distress ink. So there's that Merry Christmas. You can see how much of the trees it covers up. I don't love that. But I am going to show you that I did, because I did the same thing with the one we actually used, but I didn't film it. I apologize. So I'm going to go in. This is with that stormy sky. I'm just going to go right over top of that. It's going to make it just a little bit darker and match the background a little bit better. Because it's a little bit darker, it's also going to help that white embossing kind of pop a little bit. Really love this Merry Christmas. Fully intend to come back and use it on a different set. And then I'm just going to take a dry cloth and buff over the top. This one I used the ice spruce, and it did match the blue-green in the background a whole lot better. And again, just going to buff right over the top of that to clean up any of the embossing. I liked the way that this looked, but because I don't have an exact match, it wasn't green, it wasn't blue enough on the blue-green side, so I just brought in some of that stormy sky and went back over the top, buffed it again, and then that made it like the perfect match. The snow, I wanted to add some snow. You don't have to do this, you can skip the step, but I thought that it would be really cute. So I'm just going in with a white gel pen, and anywhere that there's a little ledge with the branches meet, I am just filling in a little bit of snow. This does not have to be perfection, people, because snow does not clump in perfect little circles or squares or whatever. So just go in there, draw some lines, make some thicker, some thinner, so that you can see the different amounts of snow accumulation. And I really feel like this kind of bumps it up a notch. I did only add snow to the trees in the forefront for the one on the blue-green. For the one with the blue, I added snow to pretty much all of the trees because they're all the same shade. They're just kind of pushed back a little bit more because they're creating a pathway. I should mention that you can use the 3 different colors to create the pathway and get a different look, and that will still work. But anyway, use my white gel pen. You could probably use a paint pen for this as well, like an opaque white paint pen to put in your snow, and that would look great. But I was really happy with the way that that came out because I can't leave anything alone. I wanted it to have some snow also falling. And so I am using it's the Paper Splatter watercolors from Picket Fence. And this one is is it Frosted White? White Snowflake. And it is a little bit, it's very similar to Perfect Pearls, but then you don't have to mix it. And this, like the fan brush, I really like, but I find that I have to kind of tap it off my project first to get rid of those bigger splatters to get the finer ones that I'm looking for in the background. This adds tons of shimmer. You can see it here, and it's just a really fun way to create snow in the background, especially for the elegant card. I think it's super fun. I am going to stack my sentiment because, again, this is like the sentiment is the only thing that's on the card besides the trees. And so I wanted to make sure that it was going to have enough weight to stand out. So I have the one that we've heat embossed on the green, and then I cut three more out of just white cardstock and glued those all together. For the little girls, like I said, I glued them down flat. So I'm going to have one that's kind of walking up the pathway, and then the other 2 that are already going to be on the snow. And then I will put my sentiment. You really could have put it anywhere. I put my 2 little girls on the right a little closer to each other than the girl on the left. And so I just put my sentiment on the left-hand side to kind of balance that. And then from there, I did want to accent. Oh, I got to put in the shadows. Gosh, Kelly, you're getting ahead of yourself, girl. So I did put in the shadows underneath their little feet. The girl on the pathway already has some what looks like shadows. I just went in and made them more specifically to her. I also, because I like when my die cuts blend into my scene, I did go in and color in the white outline. So if it was up against a blue tree, I colored that section blue. If it was up against the the ink blending in the background, I used a very light blue-green to fill that in. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is add even more shimmer and shine. I added shimmer to the top of the snow banks with a shimmer pen, as well as to some of the elements on the girls, like the little unicorn horn, like one of the little girl's vest, things like that. And then added also in my white highlights to my little characters like I would normally do. And then in order to accent the sentiments, I did just use a couple of rhinestones. Picket Fence has some really great rhinestones. I don't currently own any of those. I must go shopping. So I did just use some that I had laying around that are kind of like a white rainbow, something like that. And then I added those, and I was really super happy with the way that they both came out. I love this technique. It's such a great way to add something that's unique, that's your own. Every tree scene will be unique. I hope it inspires you to try it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.